He became orphaned from his parents at the age of 5 years old. The last thing his father told him was, Yisrael, you shouldn't fear anybody or anything except for Almighty God. That's what made the Baal Shem Tov a fearless child and a fearless adult. He would hang out in the woods and do all sorts of types of stuff. So that was the Baal Shem Tov's great teaching that his father gave him before he died. But that's not the subject of today's. Lesson. Good evening, Rosalind, and welcome everybody. Whoever else just joined us now. Parsha Shlach and the Chumash. It's on the Numbers, chapter 13. We begin the story of the spies. What's called the spies. The story of the spies is the story of the Jewish people who were supposed to enter the land of Israel, and instead they tell Moses that they're having second thoughts, they have hesitation. Let's send spies. Moses consults God. God says, I'm not telling you what to do, you do whatever you want. And so Moses sends spies. He sends them. At the end of the day, he sends them. Who does he send? He sends 12 leaders of the tribes. And he gives them instructions exactly what to do. Tells them exactly what to do. So if you follow this Chumash, in our Chumash is on page 942, if you follow over here, it says as follows. This is from the book of Numbers, and the chapter, what is it? Chapter 13, verse number 17. And Moshe sent them to explore the land of Canaan. He said to them, go up this way along the south, and then go up the mountain of Hor. See what kind of land it is. Are the people who inhabit it strong or weak? Are there a few of them or many? How is the land which they inhabit? Does it have good or bad springs? How are the cities in which they live? Are they unenclosed cities or fortresses? What is the soil like? Is it fertile or barren? Are there any righteous people there, like trees or not? Be courageous and take some of the land's fruit. It was season when the first grapes ripened. Okay, so that's what happens. They go up there. Moshe gives them instructions what to do. They go up. They follow the instructions there. And then fast forward. So the verse says in verse 23, and here you have it on your source sheets. The verse says like this. Let's pay attention. Vayavoyu ad Nachal Eshkol. They reached the Wadi Eshkol. Vayichrusu misham zmoira, and they cut down a branch. Ve'eshkel anovim echad, with a single cluster of grapes. Vayisau b'moit v'shnoim. It had to be carried on a frame by two of them. Umin harimaynim umin hata'enim, and some pomegranates and figs. So what did they do? They got a cluster of grapes, pomegranates, and figs, right? Clear? Says Rashi. They carried it on a pole between them. I won't read the Hebrew, I'll just read the English translation. You have it here on your source sheet. From what is implied in this statement, and they bear it upon a pole. Do I not know that it was carried by two men? Why then does it add the word bishnoim? In other words, if it's on a pole, it was carried by two people on the pole. It means not as you assume by two men, but upon two poles. How was that done? 8 of the spies bore the cluster of grapes. Besides these, one spy took the fig and one the pomegranate. But Yehoshua and Kalev did not carry anything, because the very essence of their intention was only to bring an evil report.
Oh.
So in other words, let's try to figure this out. How exactly did they schlep? This is a schlepping. They had to schlep. So Rashi says, well, you want to know how they schlepped it? It was on two poles, and they put a cluster of grapes. 8 of them carried, and then one guy schlepped pomegranates, and one guy schlepped the dates. That's 8 plus 1 plus 1 is 10. Well, you had 12 spies. Well, Joshua and Caleb, they did not carry any of the fruits. Why not? Because they didn't want any part in their evil intention. That's what Rashi says. Because the very essence of their intention was only to bring an evil report. Okay? Now, here is the question that has to be addressed over here. It's such a simple question, but yet it must be addressed. And that is, what did the spies go for? They weren't given a mission that they came up with on their own. They were given a specific mission to carry out. Moses gave them their mission. One of the things that Moshe Rabbeinu told them in their mission, we just read it a few verses earlier. In verse number 20, he said, be courageous and take some of the land's fruits. In other words, they were given a command, they were given an instruction by Moses to bring back the fruits. How could it possibly be that Caleb and Joshua, the two righteous ones of the group, didn't listen to Moshe and carry back the fruit? Rashi says, gives us what they carried, how they schlepped, but both those two didn't. Why didn't these carry the fruits? Why didn't they bring back the fruits like they were instructed? So Rashi tells us, it gives us a reason why. He gives us a reason why. What's the reason that he gives us? Because the essence of what they wanted to do was to give a bad report. Fine, that's fine. That's the reason why they didn't want to. But who gave them the right? Moshe told you to do it. How do you just say, oh, we don't want to take part in this? It's not looking good, so we don't want to take part in it. A very powerful question on these two righteous spies. So in order to get to the bottom of this, we have to look at the source of Rashi. Rashi, in general, most of the time, doesn't write his own commentary. Rashi writes previously taught commentary, but from all, Rashi compiled his explanation, his commentary, to feed the mind of the 5-year-old child, as Rashi calls him, which means the beginner. Rashi addresses the beginner. Rashi's talking to the beginner. So over here, Rashi quotes a story that they didn't carry, right? That these two tribes didn't carry, and he gave us a reason why. What's the source of Rashi? So the source of Rashi is from the Talmud Tractate Sota, page 34a. Over there, the Gemara says, you have it on your source sheet. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said, Turtane v'turtane d'turtane. HaKetzat. Trying to figure out how they schlepped all these things. Shmoyne nasu eshkol, 8 of the spies. So he says they were configured like upper rods of scales that are balanced on the lower rods of scales, meaning they were not 2, they were 4 poles. How so? So 8 of the spies carried a cluster of grapes. 1 of them carried a pomegranate, and 1 carried a fig. Joshua and Caleb did not carry anything. Why didn't Joshua and Caleb carry anything? So the Gemara offers now 2 explanations why. Number 1, Mishum Dechashivi, because they were more prominent than the rest of the spies. So it was beneath their dignity to make them schlep. This is common practice. You know, you see someone schlepping, it's not befitting a person of their honor and stature to have to schlep like that. So you offer your hand, give it to me, I'll take it. You don't have to carry it. All right. That's the first reason. The second reason is they didn't want to take part in the wicked plot of the spies. They don't want to take a part in it. Okay, so the Gemara offers 2 explanations, right? 2 possibilities why. Rashi seems to only offer the second one, or a version of the second one, which is that they didn't want to take part in the evil plot of the spies. That's what Rashi says. The Gemara offers another interpretation, that it was beneath their dignity. Why? What
was so scary about the grapes? Were they just so foreign looking?
Oh, well, you imagine you needed 8 people to schlep 1 cluster. These were oversized, jumbo, scary-looking grapes. The figs, you had one guy had to schlep pomegranates, one guy figs. These were massive, massive productions. They were trying to come along and say, just like the fruits are abnormal, so to the land is abnormal. They have giants. The whole thing is everything is Meshiga. Stay away from this project. You know, don't go near it. It's going to be one big disaster that we're getting ourselves into. Fine. We got to remember, Moshe Rabbeinu told them to bring the fruit back. Moses wanted to show off the fruit to everybody, right? So there's value in this mission over here. So why does the Talmud offer two interpretations? In general, whenever the Talmud offers two interpretations, they have to be that from each one has a different perspective. There's a logic behind that's driving each one, that one disagrees with the other one. So what could possibly be the underlying logic, wisdom behind this disagreement of these two? Why do we need two reasons? So there's one way of looking at this, and that is as follows. When Moses gave an instruction what to do, right? He gives them an instruction. And now the instruction was breached. It wasn't followed, right? Is that a reason to say that the entire mission was abolished or not? In other words, when there's a breach in the mission, does that mean the entire mission is now abort the whole mission? Or do we say, no, the mission is still moving forward? So these are the two ways to look at it from these two perspectives. According to the first answer, I'm sorry, that explains that it was beneath their dignity to carry the fruit, right? Follow that. Why do you have to say it was beneath their dignity? Because if it wasn't beneath their dignity, then they should have been carrying the fruit, which means that the mission was still on, it was still a go. But if you say that the reason why they didn't participate is because they didn't want to participate in this mission, that means they must have felt that the whole entire mission was aborted because of this, that they were planning on doing. So that's why each one offers a different perspective over here, which this can be even further if we want to go a little bit deeper. This is dependent on, well, why would the mission be aborted or not? Why would we think, could possibly be the logic behind saying that the entire mission is aborted? So this comes to a general question. When a mission is given to a group of people, a community of people, and some of the people breach, some of the people go against, some of the people break away, does this now mean that the entire mission is broken? Because I view it as a mission given to the community or to the group. And now that we no longer have the entire group, there's nothing really that we can do. Or do we say, no, the mission was given to every single individual in the group? So if certain individuals walked away from it, that doesn't remove the mission from the rest of the individuals, because it was always given to individuals who made up a group. Different perspective. Some will say, you look at it, you view it as, we're a group. We're just one. We're one group. And the moment we're a team, so to speak. If some member of the team does something wrong, that it will affect the entire team. So we can all lose because of one person doing something wrong. Imagine, it's like someone is found cheating in a ball game, right? If they would make a rule and say, well, if a member of your team is caught cheating, then it's an automatic loss for the entire team. We can understand because a member of the team, and if one member does something wrong, so the whole team suffers. Or do we say, no, one member is found to be cheating, so we'll punish him as an individual, but everybody else can still continue the performance? There's logic, there's a way to argue both sides. Based off of these two different viewpoints, that will now determine whether this mission given by Moses, was it completely finished as soon as the spies went and cheated, so to speak? They went on their own, they did their own thing. So Kalev and Yeshua felt, listen, we don't want no part in this, because they're not fulfilling the mission that they were given. So therefore they walked away from the whole thing. They said, we're not carrying any fruit. Or they said, no, the mission to carry fruit is still, the obligation is still upon us, because a few members of the group, even a majority, did something wrong. It doesn't abdicate us from our responsibility. So why didn't they schlep? They didn't schlep because it was beneath their dignity. They were very prominent individuals who wouldn't be respectful for them to schlep. So based off of this, we can follow. Now let's follow the logic. So if Rashi learns that the reason why Kalev and Yeshua did not carry is because of they didn't want part in the evil mission. So now we understand that Rashi is following the logic that says that the entire mission was aborted. As soon as the group broke away, the entire mission fell apart, and that's why they felt like we no longer had the responsibility to carry. Now, why didn't Rashi learn like the other way? So we can try to understand why Rashi didn't learn like the first way, that the mission was still ongoing, because they would learn that Moshe Rabbeinu knew all along that they were prominent people, and therefore he knew that they wouldn't be carrying anyway. So it was never a mission given to a specific individual. Maybe you could learn like that. But let's take this further. What's the problem with this logic? The problem with this logic is that it seems to go completely opposite of the story of what we're talking. In other words, we're making an attempt now, as you would say. The attempt we're trying to say is trying to get into Rashi's logic in explaining the verse, explaining why these two people didn't carry when Moses clearly said, "Bring me back from the fruit." So we're trying to say that they felt that the mission was aborted. Why was the mission aborted? Because a big chunk of the group went astray. But now let's follow the story the way we have it recorded in the Chumash. And that seems to indicate something different, because when they came back, when all the spies come back, and they had a lot to say, they had a lot to talk, what happened? So after the spies give their negative report, what does the Torah say? In Numbers chapter 14, verse 6, you have it on the source sheet here. Joshua the son of Nun, Kalev the son of Yefuna, when they hear that report, they tear their clothes. What is continuing? The next verse, and they opened their mouth and they said, to everybody, the whole community, they said, the land that we traversed and scouted is an exceedingly good land. 1 second, what are you talking for? Why are they opening their mouth? Didn't we just say that the whole mission was aborted? Who asked you for a report? Moses. But when he asked you for the report, it was part of this whole thing but that whole mission was aborted. So what are you giving a report for? The fact that they're giving a report clearly indicates that they felt that they were supposed to give a report. They were commissioned to give a report. That's why they went. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say that, hey, it was aborted, but now let's continue the mission. It doesn't work that way. So clearly from the verse, the mission was still going. The mission was still going. And likewise, you can go even further. And it doesn't really make any sense if you learn in the Chumash to say that the whole mission was abolished because a little part of it was tampered with. Because both Joshua and Kalev never walked away from these people. They were with them all along. They were constantly with them. And not only that, Moses prays for Joshua before he sends him. He says, God should protect you from the concocted plot of the spies. In other words, Moses was suspicious about this all along. And nevertheless, he still sent him. So what are you going to say now? The whole mission was aborted as soon as they came up with this plot. He already preempted that by giving him a different name, by adding God's name. And they never left. If you follow the story, it doesn't seem from the verses anywhere that this is the reality. On the contrary, it seems clearly that Joshua and Kalev felt like the mission was still a go. They were part of a holy mission. They were coming back to give a report, and although they were in the minority, they pushed back loud and clear, and they said, you guys are wrong. We're going to conquer the land. If God said it, we will conquer the land, and everyone calmed down. Sadly, they weren't listened to, but that's a different story. As far as their conscious, they were given a mission, they followed through on the mission, and now we're left with the question, so why didn't they bring the fruit back? Why didn't they? They were commissioned. Part of it was to bring the fruit. So why didn't they carry the fruit? So in order to understand this, we have to look carefully at Rashi and the Gemara. Rashi uses slightly different words than the Talmud. In the Talmud, it says, they didn't want to take part in that plot, we'll call it. Very short words. They didn't want to take part in the plot. They didn't carry because they weren't part of the plot. That's what the Talmud says. Rashi goes on a little bit more than that. Rashi says like this. Because the entire essence of the spies was all to give a bad report. Just like its fruits are abnormal, so too its nation is abnormal. That these words are not found in the Talmud. The Talmud just says they didn't want to take part in the plot. Rashi goes further. The essence of their whole essence was to come back with this negative report and display just like the fruits are abnormal and strange, so too the people are strange, and we're never going to be able to be successful on that. This change seems to show that Rashi is driving at something more than the Talmud is. Yes, that maybe the basis of it is in the Talmud, but there's something deeper here that Rashi is teaching us that even the Talmud does not say. And what is that? What are we talking about over here? So in order to understand this properly, you have to understand how did this plot work? In a fascinating way. Today, this actually drives at a big part of conversations that are taking place today in the world at large, the political world, in different types of circles. There's a big thing in the world called conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy theories. There's always people that have conspiracy theories about everything in life, right? If you listen to conspiracy theorists from beginning to end, a lot of what they're saying makes sense. They didn't just come up with a conspiracy theory out of nowhere. They say a conspiracy, then they say an idea, and then they back it up with very weak evidence. It's just circumstantial. He said that, they bought it here, they sold it there, they looked there, they went there. Oh, you see, the whole thing was one big conspiracy. There's no evidence, there's no data for it, but that's how you concoct a conspiracy. Rashi tells us something fascinating in this parsha over here about lies and conspiracy theories. If you want to make a successful lie, if you want it to be a successful conspiracy theory, there's a method to the madness. And that method is found in Rashi over here, based off of the original conspiracy theorists, maybe, these spies. What happened over here? They didn't want to go to the land. They had their agenda. Their agenda was, we got to come back and convince the people that this is a no-no or a no-go. How are we going to do it? So we have to come up with some fabrication to figure out what exactly can we possibly say that's going to change the mind of the people, so to speak, right? What do? They have to lay a foundation. The foundation they have to lay has to be true. If you have a good, true foundation, then you can build on that false. You can build on that a theory, a conspiracy, a lie, and then you can sell it and people will buy it. And this is what their plot was. Their plot was, we have to talk first words of truth. And after we talk words of truth, then we'll spin it in a way that will get the people's attention, and now they'll believe it. So what happens? They come back and they say, in verse 25 in the Chumash, you see, they returned back from scouting the land after 40 days. When they went, they went to Moses and all the people in the Midbar Pardon Kodesh. Excuse me. And they brought them back a report, as well as to the entire congregation. And they showed them the land's fruit. And they told him, and they said, we came to the land to which you sent us. And it's a land flowing with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. In other words, is it true that it's a land flowing with milk and honey? Sure, that's what we heard about it. So they came back. The first thing they said was, it's a land flowing with milk and honey, and these are its fruit. Look, this place is unbelievable. It's got some fantastic, wonderful things. But then they went on and they said, however, Yazam, the people who live there are extraordinarily powerful, and the cities are well afforded. And then they went on their spin. The first thing they did was they said the truth. And you see in Rashi, quote a few over here, Rashi says, on the source sheet, the final piece of the source sheet you have, you can look at it over here. Rashi says they stated this. Why did they say that it was a land flowing with milk and honey? They stated this because no fabricated statement in which one does not at least put some true words at first can in the end be maintained. If you want to have a good conspiracy theory, if you want to have a good lie that lands, not just some Michigan idea that everyone looks at you and says, you're nuts. No, they listen to you and they say, wow, this person is onto something. Makes sense. Yeah, well, maybe this, maybe these people are behind it. Maybe you have to have something true. Absent anything true, the whole thing is no one's going to pay attention to. It's not going to last. It's going to fall apart. Fascinating piece just to stop there and think about this. And you see this in life today with all the different people that spin stuff and how they spin. Everyone has a little bit of truth. They pick up on one drop of truth and then they take it and they spin it around the world and back. And there's no end to it nowadays. There's no end to it. But what do you see from here? You see from here something fascinating. That what was the reason why the spies in their mind, what was their logic for bringing back the fruit? What did they want to bring back the fruit? In their mind, there was something specific. They had an agenda with the fruit itself. And that was to set up the lie. So bringing the fruit back was part of their setup for they would then go on to say that we can't conquer the lie. And that's why the spies, that's why Kalev and Yeshua could not participate in that part of the mission. Because participating in that part of the mission would have meant that they were complicit. They were an accomplice to the crime, to the setup of the crime. And that we said we can't do, even though Moses said to do it. But we can't follow through with this specific part of the mission because they have completely perverted it to now become a setup for them. And now we can't, that's what Rashi's focused on even more than the Talmud. We'll see this in a fascinating way in a second. When it comes to the mitzvahs in general, there are two ways that one can analyze what does God want in the mitzvah. Does God want me to do it or does God want it done? Is there an action that I must take or does God just want that the action should be done? For example, the best example for this is the mitzvah of tefillin. Mitzvah of tefillin, there are two parts to the mitzvah. There's the arm tefillin and there's the head tefillin. In the Shema, we say, "Ukshartam la'os al yodecha," and you should tie it for a sign on your hand. And they should be for a l'toitafos between your eyes. So one tefillin on the arm to tie, and one it should be. We learn from here something fascinating. The arm tefillin, God says, what should you do with it? You have to tie it on your arm. So the mitzvah is that you have to do it. You have to tie it on. There has to be the action. That's what God's looking for. The head tefillin is just that it should be on your head. How it got there is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how it got there. If you put it on or it landed on your head, as long as it's on your head, because all God said is, and they should be. All they have to be is be there. That's it. So this is a general way you can observe all commandments, all instructions. Do you need me to do it? Excuse me, or you just want the thing done? What do you want? Moses said to bring back fruits. Was his instruction, I want every one of you to go ahead and take fruit? Or they just want the fruits to be brought back, to be on display, to show everybody? It doesn't matter if you take it or you don't take it. Who takes it and who doesn't take it is not what's important to me. Who schleps, who doesn't schlep is not what's important to me. All what's important to me is that the fruits get back here. How do we understand the instruction? And you should take from the fruit of the land. Did he really mean that I want everyone to take something? Or did he just mean, guys, make sure fruits get back here, figure out a way how to get fruits back here, bring the fruits back here. So you can learn that this difference is how the difference between in the Talmud of the two answers. The Talmud said, number one, that they weren't fit, they were too respected of individuals, was beneath their dignity to shlep. The second answer of the Talmud said that they didn't want to take part in that in the plot. So how do we understand these two things? The first one is, why didn't Kalev and Yeshua shlep? Kalev and Yeshua didn't shlep because it was never in their mind, it was never an instruction that they had to shlep. They were very, very respected people among the Jewish people. When Moses said to bring back fruit, he didn't mean that I should schlep. He meant it should be brought back. So that was enough for them not to participate. That's the first answer in the Talmud. The second answer in the Talmud says, no, Moses' instruction was that every person should take. Oh, if that's the case, so why didn't they take? To say that that it was beneath their dignity is not enough to abdicate a responsibility that Moshe been. Oh, for that we have to say that they didn't want to participate in the plot. Right? And Rashi now goes even a step further. Rashi says, surely this was an instruction given to every single individual. Every single person was instructed by Moshe Rabbeinu to bring back fruit. So everyone should have brought back fruit. However, Rashi says even further in the Talmud. The reason, as I mentioned before, why didn't they participate? Because it was part of the setup to the plot. This was the moment of truth that they wanted to establish in order to spin their lies. And for that, they said, we have no choice, Moshe Rabbeinu. We're not going to be able to follow through on this mission because there's no way to do it. If we participate, that means we were an accomplice, we were a part of this, and that would be a disaster. If we don't participate, that's our only hope of coming back and saying a good report that we have nothing to do with these individuals. So this helps us understand the whole beginning and end, how we are to understand that instruction was given as an individual to the people. It was an instruction given that they should bring back the fruit, each and every one of them. And they would have brought it back if not for the fact that the actual deed, we'll call it, the action of bringing the fruit was sadly hijacked by them to now become just a setup for their own personal agendas. What was their agenda? Their agenda at the end of the day was to remain in the desert. So this puts the whole picture together from in a very, very beautiful way. That we have to learn from this. There's the story with the spies gives us a lot of material to think about always, in terms of what the spies wanted. The spies wanted to remain in a spiritual ghetto, in a spiritual cocoon, protected by God forever. God said, no, we have to go into the desert, we have to go into the land, we have to work, we have to integrate into the world, we have to make the world a dwelling place for Hashem. The point is not to make the world a dwelling place, the point is that God should dwell there. You don't build a house because you like building, you build a house because you want to live in it. So that's at the end of the day, the agenda, the final point of the agenda is that God's presence should be revealed and should be able to dwell together with God here. So that was a mistake that the spies made. But the way it works in life is, when someone says something wrong on one side, so what happens is the people on the other side take it to the opposite extreme. That's the way it always works. And this is what we have it out today also, and we find this in a lot. And the big debate about the speech and controlling speech and free speech, people like to take it to extremes. There's free speech across the board, or people lock down speech across. There has to be a normal balance in between that allows for people to remain safe, to remain respectful, at the same time to express their opinions, even though they may be different than somebody else's opinion or opinion that I like. That's definitely true. But you find this across the board. Every time there's a disagreement in whatever the subject is, people pull at the extremes. And it's like, we want to prove our point. You're terrible because you allowed for that, and you're terrible because you disallowed that. So the spies had one extreme position, and that was, we want to be fully immersed in Torah all day, etc., 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 etc. The godly approach, so to speak, the agenda for the Jewish people was, you got to go into the land because action is the main thing. You can't live in a world of study your whole life. You have to be able to get out into the world and apply that to the real world. So one can make a mistake and think that meditation and mindfulness and being aware and emotionally attached, all these things, it's not so important. Or it can be, they make the mistake to think that it's completely irrelevant because God just wants this action, 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 action. No, it's not the case. It's not the case. God, action is the most important thing. It's true. But at the same time, there's value into the spies also. What the spies wanted in a very limited form is integral. You have to be mindful. You have to attach yourself emotionally and intellectually to the Jewish concepts as well. On the contrary, that's how you have a wholesome impact on the world. And if God punished the spies for their mistake in a very measured way, we'll call it, because they didn't want to go into the land, so God said, sure, you don't want to go, you won't go. And apply that now on the flip side, God's power of good, and when it comes to meting out reward, how much more so God applies great reward for people that try to and intend to and want to do good things, and they are working and they put in the effort to do good things, that God applies that in a very real way to having a very positive impact on the world. So yes, you have a body and a soul in every action. There is the body of the action, which is just the meat and potatoes, and there's the soul of it, which is the kavanah, the intent, the passion, the love that goes into performing the mitzvah. And a mitzvah without intent, as they say, is like a body without a soul. It's lacking. There's no question about it that it's lacking. But likewise, at the same time, it's integral. It's important. We can't wait for that, but we want to have it. So this is our job. This is what we're looking for as a goal in life, is to be fully immersed in a very real way in the behaviors and in the actions that the spies didn't want to engage in to make an impact, a positive impact on the world. And at the same time, gleaning from and taking from the value that the spies offered, which was to be mindful and aware, to be engaged intellectually and emotionally, and to put that and invest that in the mitzvah, to have a real life-filled and soul-filled experience every time we do a mitzvah. In that way, you can, just like the soul changes a person from death to life, and so too the mitzvah becomes fully alive. And the true only way to do this is if we are engaged and plugged into the teachings of the Chassidic teachings, because the Chassidic teachings allow and give forth that soul to every mitzvah. If you don't have the Chassidic teachings behind it, so then it's just rote. It's just robotic. I'm doing it. I don't know why I'm doing it. I don't know what's behind it. You study a little Kabbalah, you study a little Chassidus, and you get a little flavor, at least a full appreciation we may not have, but at least a flavor. As they would say, the people that study the Chassidic teachings now, what's the purpose of it? So when Mashiach comes and everything will be revealed, they're going to say, now I understand what I was learning about all these years. Whereas people that sadly don't have that privilege of studying these insights and delights of Torah, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? I never heard of these things in my life. So at least when Mashiach comes, we'll have a basic understanding to say, our elementary understanding is good enough to say, now I fully appreciate everything that I've studied, as opposed to saying, please teach me Aleph Beis over here, because I don't know what you're talking about. So let's take a lesson from this, from the spies, to always see things as the way they are, from a godly perspective, follow through with the missions that Moshe Rabbeinu gives us, using our own 2 cents and how to apply it and when to apply it, and try to stay far away from, as we learned last week in Pirkei Avos, from a shochin ra, from a bad neighbor, from bad influences on us, because it's very easy to get caught up. And last but not least, certainly remember that if you hear a conspiracy theory and you do hear these things, remember the good ones have truth to it. Yes, the good ones do have truth to it, and that's what makes them so scary, is the fact that there is truth embedded in that web of lies. All right, anyone have any questions?